What's going on, guys? This is the Edge DFS. We are talking showdown for Saturday afternoon football. Bills visiting the Broncos. My name is Tyson Smith. I'm joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, Saturday football, man. How you feeling about this? We got two showdowns to break down today. First being Bills versus Broncos. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited, dude. I love UFC, but football is my favorite sport, so I'm glad to have it on a weekend. And I'll be drunk as hell watching all the games, so I'm pretty stoked, dude.
Whenever football's on, especially on the weekends, it's like being at the airport. You know, you can start drinking whenever, you can do whatever, eat whatever the fuck you want, drink whenever you want. It's kind of awesome, actually.
Yep.
All right, so we're doing Bills here. The Bills came off of a huge win last week. Josh Allen getting a lot of press as being there's a lot of debates out there if he's a top 5 quarterback. I think it's a little too early to say that. I think to me personally, I think he's right outside the top 5, but I think he's definitely up there. It's not a diss on him. It's just more about we just need to see him win a playoff game. Take his team a little bit deeper in the playoffs.
Playoffs?
And speaking of playoffs, this is to win the division. If they win this game, they're going to win the AFC East for the first time, I think, 25 years. So it's a big, big game for them. I don't think they're going to take this lightly at all. If they'd already wrapped up the division, then maybe this is going to be one of those games where they might overlook the Broncos because they're just not that great of a team. But I don't think the Broncos are as bad of a team as everyone thinks they are. We all remember they didn't have a quarterback a few weeks ago. As long as Drew Lock is playing, I think this team has upside. The Broncos won last week. Drew Lock, I think, passed for 4 touchdowns, had a really good game. They beat the Panthers, which, the Panthers aren't the greatest team in the world, but they're not a bad team. Panthers have a decent offense, and they were able to sort of contain them. So with this matchup here, man, what are your thoughts just right out of the gate, just football-wise? This seems like a pretty fun matchup. The Bills, we did a showdown slate with them, I think it was last week, I think. And they're a fun team to watch. They're really interesting to watch. The Broncos, we did a showdown slate with them a few weeks ago as well. They're not as interesting to me, but there's some young players on this team that we can really utilize in a showdown slate. And the ownership is skewed heavily towards the Bills. So what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think the Bills understand the importance of this game, and like you alluded to earlier, we do have a narrative. Josh Allen's been in the press for some, honestly, bullshit, to put it another way, right? Like, you got professional athletes, retired athletes talking shit about other professional athletes.
Yeah.
I really wasn't expecting to see something like that this week. I mean, it didn't make any sense. It was just a bad take, but we're talking about it, so the dude's getting his some virality out of it, if that's a fucking word.
Yeah, but he's not gonna be. I don't think he's not gonna be around too much longer with these stupid ass comments he made. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean it's just a bad take, right? So I expect the Bills to come out even more kind of fired up than they were to to win the division, right? So I don't know what you're doing. You're definitely not helping them lose this game unless Josh Allen gets in his head, but. Yeah. Look, I'm excited for this matchup. Josh Allen's had one of the most amazing transformations when it comes to accuracy that I think we've seen in the NFL. Last year, he sucked dick. This year, he's one of the more accurate passers in the league. I think he was dead last year, to be honest with you.
He was under. He was 58 or he was under 50%. Now he's 68% completion percentage, which is insane. Which is better than Big Ben. It's better than most of these quarterbacks in the NFL.
And a shout out to Kurt Warner here. I've been trying to get him to do and by trying to him, I mean on Twitter. I'm not friends with Kurt Warner as much as I'd love to say that I am. Kurt Warner, if you're watching this, I love you, dude. You're my hero. Look, he's the only person that got the Cardinals to a Super Bowl, so let's just be there. Him and Larry Fitzgerald, of course. But anyways, look, he has this thing that he works for on Twitter. It's a quarterback breakdown, like school type thing. Next time I'll get some more information on it and I'll tout it. I don't want to give out stuff that I'm not necessarily licensed to at this point. But he breaks stuff down, and I want to see him do a breakdown of kind of the transformation that he sees in Josh Allen. I think that would be really interesting to see that from a Hall of Fame quarterback,
Yeah.
and really just break it down from somebody who's not Troy Aikman and Joe Buck.
Yeah, God.
Honestly, is what I would watch Carson Palmer fucking do it. I mean, Jesus, give me
Yeah.
Jamarcus Russell breaking down the transformation. Anything but Joe
Akeem
Buck
Talib
and Troy
even.
Aikman. Yeah, bro. Dude, fucking Ken Griffey Jr. Like, I don't care. I really don't give a shit. Just I don't want any more Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. And the good news is we don't have any more. It's all Saturday night. Actually, I take that back.
They might be.
All the
Fox has
games.
a lot of this shit. I mean,
So
dude,
I digress, but it's
Aikman
be...
is he. All right, I know we're going off a tangent here. Aikman has had so many fucking concussions. You can see it in his face. The dude is fucking lit. The dude is lit every fucking broadcast almost. Some more than others. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about most of the time.
He's either just popping Percocets the whole fucking broadcast, or he's smoking blunts in the fucking bathroom. I don't know what to tell you. Like, so on the broadcast Thursday night, did you hear him he just started laughing. It was uncomfortable. He was uncomfortably laughing for into the snap. Like, it was a good 15 seconds of the play clock. I was like, bro, what are you doing?
His eyes are glazed over. They're bloodshot. I don't know what it's from. But look, I don't mind Joe Buck as much. I know everyone hates Joe Buck. I don't mind him as much. But Troy Aikman has been getting on my nerves lately. Anyways, all right. So back to this matchup.
It's going to be a fun game. I'm excited for.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's look at the lines here. Let's look at we got obviously Buffalo visiting Denver. Buffalo's minus 240 favorites with a 70% win probability. -5 is the spread in favor of Buffalo, and a 49 over under. The ownership is heavily skewed towards Buffalo, and I get it. It should be more towards Buffalo. But we can find a huge edge here by finding some of these Denver players. I mean, look, 22 implied total is not great, obviously. But we're not talking about the Jets at 14 points or some of these teams that we've had on showdown slates where they're getting under 17 points implied total. I think that look, 3 touchdowns potentially, 2 touchdowns and a few field goals for Denver. We're gonna have to find those points somewhere. DraftKings is gonna they're forcing you to play at least one player from Denver, and I think if you play 2 or even 3, you can be highly unique. You don't need to get crazy with it. I think Buffalo is going to win this game, and I think they're going to score a lot of points, and all the obvious plays I think will go off. But you're dealing with the Denver team that's 5-8. They're not the Jets. They're not some of these really terrible teams. I think they have a shot, especially if Drew Lock can come out and play well. The only thing in question here is Denver has a ton of injuries to deal with on the defensive side. I think they've lost 4 cornerbacks to injury and 1 to suspension. So I think they have 3 active cornerbacks from what I heard today, one of which was claimed from the practice squad from another team. So you're talking about a guy coming in, pretty much starting at cornerback against a really good wide receiver core here with Buffalo. I think we have to really target Buffalo's receivers here. Their running backs have never been a factor this entire year. So obviously you got Josh Allen, who's getting a majority of the rushing yards and attempts anyways. So we can, if you focus on Josh Allen and pair him up with a few of his wide receivers, I think that'll play well here in this matchup. But tell me what you think about this overall here. Minus 240 for Buffalo, only a 5-point spread. I know they're on the road. I feel like this should be a little bit higher skewed towards Buffalo. I wonder if a lot of the money has been coming in on Denver from the Sharps here, sort of pushed it back to this. I don't know what it opened at. I haven't seen that information, but as of right now, less than 12 hours or so. We're recording that, yeah. So we're not that far away from. I think it's 16, 17 hours away from lock here. So right now, what do you think about this spread? Do you think this is accurate in your opinion? What do you think this game is going to turn out to be? It's only less than a touchdown spread. I think Buffalo can easily win by more than a touchdown.
Yeah, I think Buffalo wins by probably 14 points. I can see him winning this game by 2 touchdowns. That's kind of egregious given it's the NFL, right? But I don't know how many times Josh Allen's played in Denver, but I, I wonder if he could just fucking. I wonder if he can keep it in the fucking stadium. Like, you know what I mean? If kickers get a little bit of extra lift, you always play the Colorado Rockies when they're at home, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I wonder if he's just gonna end up launching balls in the fucking air, right? I mean, they got some fast wide receivers. What do you do to cover that?
yeah,
We could get a goddamn Madden Bowl from the Bills offense. I think they could put up some points.
yeah.
So I'm with you. I think 5 points is kind of a small spread. I guess that I get that they're giving the Broncos some points because they're at home, but I don't know if it's going to be that close. And that's kind of saying something given the fact that I really don't. I don't handicap a team more than 6.5 for pretty much anything when it comes to NFL. So I would give them 12.5, 13.5 probably on this game.
Yeah, well, you should bet that, by the way, since you're in a legal betting state over there in Indiana. By the way, not to mention fucking, big arms. Did you hear that fucking Baker Mayfield had the longest recorded fucking throw in the NFL? Is that NFL history? Is that what it was? When he overthrew the Hail Mary there? Is that true?
So kind of. I need to look into it more. They said NFL history on the headline. But it was recorded by Pro Football Focus, so it was, yeah. So I feel like
70 yards is not
misleading.
I mean, look,
Yeah,
a fucking 16-year-old can fucking throw that. I mean, like that is a great that's far, but there are people out there in the world who can throw the ball farther than that. So that was just kind of an interesting stat to me. That was a little misleading to me.
Yeah, bro, Josh Allen's he's actually thrown a ball out of the stadium. Like he's fucking. There's a video of him just taking the ball and throwing it out of the.
Do you remember that Michael Vick commercial? Was that Nike or Gatorade where they fucking edited it and where he threw it out of the stadium? It was like home footage or something. Yeah, that was crazy. All right, sorry guys, we've had a couple beers here. It's Friday night. We're just enjoying ourselves. We're gonna go off on some tangents here. All right, so look, injuries. John Brown's out. I listened to some of McDermott. I didn't get any, from the horse's mouth. I didn't get anything for him because he's fucking dry as shit and he answers with yes or no, responses. But basically what they asked him was, did you feel like it was important to not risk John Brown, coming back and playing? You're going to just hold him out for another week? And he's basically just said yes. So I think John Brown's getting close. I think he'll be back next week, but for now they're just going to hold him out. Lee Smith is a backup tight end. He's questionable. I don't think you really need to target these tight ends, in my opinion. We'll get into that in a minute. For the Broncos, this is really, really interesting here. You've got Melvin Gordon, and Phillip Lindsay, both questionable for this game. So it's going to be this is very, 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 very important to be around 90 minutes before lock when inactives come out, because this can change everything. If Gordon's out, Phillip Lindsay's a fucking lock. If Lindsay's out, Melvin Gordon's a better play. You just have to, this is something that happened. We did our show with the Chargers and Raiders, and we were heavy on Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, even though they were both questionable. And then it came out later on that they were leaning towards more doubtful. And then it came out later on that they were going to play. Oh, wait, they're on a limited snap count. So these are things that you really need to take into account. And I personally don't even like building lineups that I'm going to use until we see inactives with things like this. Now, tonight we're going to build a lineup together. This is more of a placeholder to kind of feel out where our captain choices are going to be and how we're going to have to be able to build with certain captains. If we're putting a guy like Melvin Gordon in the captain spot at that price tag, it's going to be different than putting a guy like Phillip Lindsay or someone else from the other side of the ball. This is just an exercise to get us ready to build those lineups when inactives come out. As well as Brandon McManus is actually out with COVID. I think it's a protocol thing. I think he was one day away from being able to play. If they played on Sunday, he would be active. So for now, they're going to have to. They brought what the fuck is this guy's name? He's a 31-year-old kicker that's pretty much a journeyman. He played. It's an interesting story. There's some articles out there on him. I think it's Russelin or something like that. He's not even on Fantasy Cruncher right now, but is he on Lineup HQ? for kickers? Probably not. I don't see him.
Not right now.
He's in the player pool.
Not.
I checked on DraftKings. He's in the player pool, and he's actually $400 cheaper than Brandon McManus. So it makes things interesting here. So what are your thoughts on the Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsay injury situation? How are you going to approach that? Are you just waiting until inactives are released? Or are you going to start to kind of pre-build some things? Like, how are you going to handle this?
Yeah, I really don't give a shit about the kickers. In this particular instance, I'm going to try and avoid them. Now, with Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, I think that's where it gets really interesting. In this particular case, I am going to go ahead and just assume that they're both going to be active.
Yeah.
I may have a couple lineups ready to go if they're not, but if they're not active, I mean, it's kind of going to fuck up a lot of things, right? Because you got to figure out who they're going to activate from the practice squad or wherever they're going to have to activate another running back, right?
Yeah.
And then assuming both of them are out. If only one of them is out, then it becomes a little bit more playable. I think Royce Freeman gets a huge boost.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think there's going to be a little bit of viability in a lot of the news that comes out again. But right now, I think Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay are probably going to play. I don't see why they wouldn't. They're questionable every week. I think Melvin Gordon's been questionable since, he was in fucking third grade. So I don't see how they don't play.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, so let's hear from the coaches here. Let's just actually hear about what we're actually dealing with this week.
I just want to know from the horse's mouth, what is the dealio?
So we got Vic Fangio talking about some injuries here for Denver.
Injury things for you. Who would be listed as questionable for Saturday?
Melvin, Graham, Philip, and Trey.
Okay. And let's hear him talking about Cole Beasley. This is interesting, considering all the injuries with their secondary here.
Being short at corner, Cole Beasley coming out of that slot. What makes him such a tough matchup?
Really quick, really savvy. He's experienced in there. He's played in the slot his entire career. He knows how to run routes. He knows how to get open. Really savvy guy. And, with Diggs on the outside and John Brown or Gabriel or McKenzie on the outside, it makes it tough because, you have to pay attention to some of those guys too. And to give the needed help sometimes to the slot can be hard. So we're just going to have to mix it up. But he's a savvy, veteran, quick, really good route runner.
So that's interesting with Beasley. I mean, we all know that Beasley has been getting a ton of targets. So his popularity this week is going to be high, and that's something we'll get into with wide receivers. If we're able to play Beasley and Diggs in the same lineup, or do we want to fade one of these guys? So, we'll get into that. But this is let's hear about the kicker situation here. If we're interested in playing any kickers for Denver,
maybe I don't know if you've had much chance to look, but Taylor Russolino, if he does have to come in, how well do you expect him to kick on Saturday?
Well, we all got our first look at him yesterday because since he's been there, he's been working and practicing while guys were meeting, so none of us had really seen him other than Tom. And he kicked very well yesterday in practice, was very encouraged by what he did in practice yesterday. If he kicks as good as he did yesterday in practice, we'll be fine.
All right, so rarely will I ever play anything about a kicker, but it's an interesting story. The guy's like 31 years old. He's possibly making his NFL debut, so there's a lot of nerves there. You're kicking, in Denver, so it's just an interesting story, as well as he's $400 cheaper than McManus. Just keep an eye on that. Don't fucking play McManus. I mean, come on. Just look at on the DraftKings app. It says COVID-19 next to his name in red, so just don't play him. That's the bottom line. All right. So, anything pop out to you there, or should we just move on?
Yeah, actually, the last dude who was asking the fucking question, I thought that was one of your goddamn sound bites. I thought that was fucking Dwight at first, and I was like, what are you talking about a kicker for? Yeah, was that a real fucking person? Anyways,
I guess so.
We should probably just proceed.
I guess so. All right, Ellie, give me a second here. I need to fix something with my power fucking going out. All my shit changed here. So while we're dealing with that,
bro, you're fucking Dutch angled like a motherfucker.
I know, dude. Well, it's like It's the fucking shelf is like off axis with the plane of my camera. So yeah. Anyways, yeah. I hope you enjoy this this fucking horror movie that's going on behind me. All right, so Ellie, talk about Josh Allen and Drew Lock here for a second. Josh Allen's at 12.4K and Drew Lock is at 10K straight up. What are your thoughts on getting both of these guys? Josh Allen's going to probably be the highest owned player on the slate, and Drew Lock is probably going to be top 3.
Yeah, man, I think that sounds about right, and I can't disagree with that. I'm sure this is going to be just earth-shattering fucking news for everybody, but I'm going to try and jam in Josh Allen, do as many lineups as I possibly can. And by that, I'm just going to fucking lock him. I'm going to lock him, and then I'm going to build from there, right? He's just going to take up one of my spots here. We all know that he has the rushing upside, but he can go off for 350 yards and 3-4 touchdowns without a fucking problem. I think he has a great opportunity to carve this defense up. I think he wants to come out with an edge and kind of just beat up on some teams and show pretty much this asshole dude in the media why he should shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I think his team wants to see that too. I to be quite frank, like I saw some shit on Twitter or whatever. His team's not happy about what they said, right? And they're rallying behind this guy. And then like that was a big victory last week against Pittsburgh, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you see that video where he was talking, where he was literally fucking hyping up his team before the game? And he's like,
"No,
hey, we don't dance. We're just here to win." Right? He was literally talking shit about Juju. Yeah, bro. Like I'll see if I can find the video because that shit was sick. Like I was pumped up. I was like, oh, God damn it, I'm a Bills fan tonight.
I know.
Right? And
all right, well let's cue our fucking
short at corner.
let's cue our fucking our typical shit here. We're gonna get right into it here. All right, we're going to a breakdown here. Josh Allen at 12.4K, Drew Lock at 10K. Like Ellie was saying, I think I think Josh Allen is a lock, and Drew Lock I think at 10K is a pretty good option. I mean, if the dude can come out and throw 2 or 3 touchdowns and be efficient, maybe get a couple rushing attempts here, I think you have to consider Drew Lock as well. If you fade Drew Lock, I think you'll be more unique, but it's a little risky because I just don't know who else on this team can step up and be the highest scoring player on the team. Josh Allen, to me, I'm going to avoid him at captain, even though I know it's risky with the rushing upside. I think he's going to be 20+% owned in the captain potentially, which to me, look, I know he has the highest probability of being the top scoring player on this slate and being the optimal captain. I get it, but there's no way that I can be unique with him at captain. Yes, there are ways, but I'd rather go with a little bit slightly lower owned guy at captain, put Josh Allen in every flex position, and only take a risk at one position in the flex, as opposed to, getting two guys under 5% in my flex position. So how are you handling captain position here with these guys? And is Josh Allen just a lock button across the board? Like, how is there a path for him not to be in the optimal lineup?
No, there's not a path for him to not be in the optimal. I guess I'll take that back. I guess if this is just a severe blowout, pretty quickly, there's an opportunity that he won't be in there. But again, the only way I see that happening is if the Buffalo defense or special teams just now comes up with a bunch of points. Otherwise, the blowout's happening by his hand because he's fucking lighting them up. Yeah. So I think he's just a stone cold lock. He should be 100% owned on this slate. And I said the same thing about Derek Carr. So fuck me, right?
Oh, God, I can't believe that.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, what did he do? Like, I don't even understand that.
He pulled
shit.
his dick, dude.
I saw something on Twitter that he was still slightly hurt from the last fucking game. Why didn't I know that? I feel like that's something. What am I supposed to do? Go watch fucking game film and look for him? Getting ducked by his lineman again, right? Yeah. Remember that his lineman didn't like him or whatever. So they said that they were the reason he broke his back. Anyways, I digress. Look, Josh Allen is a fucking lock. Drew Lock is also a lock for me. He's at 10K. And I just I don't know if I can do it again. We're fading the chalkiest captains, so I think we just need to start jamming both quarterbacks at this point. The one time we pretty much fade a quarterback, the one guy we have locked in, pulls his fucking dick out of place. So yeah. I don't know, man.
I know.
Like,
God,
look,
the NFL this year.
Tonight.
The NFL this year, man. You just look. You have to take stands, and you have to play in Showdown. You have to play players, over 70% or whatever it is. It's just these dudes are getting injured left and right. They're getting hit in the fucking head, concussion protocol. It's just so difficult. I was so frustrated with that fucking when he got, that was the second drive of the game, as it was in the first quarter. Yeah. I mean,
bro,
fuck.
He should have scored a rushing touchdown on that play.
I know.
He couldn't fucking cut.
I mean, look, Mariota looked pretty good, actually.
Yeah, dude, Derek Carr is going to be a free agent, man. If Marcus Mariota keeps playing like that, there's no fucking reason that they're going to keep paying Derek Carr what they're paying him.
All right, so I think the consensus
play
here...
both quarterbacks.
Play both quarterbacks. Don't get too fancy here. I think that I will... Look, I think Drew Lock is going to be in the flex. He's going to be like 35 to 40% owned in the flex, and he's going to be around 10% in the captain. So you're talking about under 50% total owned. So look, if you get 60% of him, 70% of him in the overall, you're still above the field. And you could still have a few lineups without both quarterbacks, just to be a little bit different. But to me, if Josh Allen, to me, I'm going to have him in 90+% of my lineups. I may do a large field tournament lineup without both quarterbacks, just to be slightly different if something goes weird. But I'm expecting that lineup to do dog shit. I'm expecting it not to do well. Obviously, by fading both of these guys, especially Drew Lock, who's going to be a large portion of this offense, I think he is going to be a little bit too stupid. I know that stupid is good in Showdown, but that's a little too stupid in my opinion. All right, so let's get over to running back here for Buffalo. This is not a sexy position for this team at all. There's not a lot of production here. You've got Devin Singletary, who's been the de facto starter for most of the year. He's at 5,000. Then you got Zach Moss, who's at 6,800. It's going to be hard to figure out who's actually going to get more of the snaps here. I think right now Zach Moss is the guy who's going to get more snaps. Last week, he was at 60+%. He was at 57% of the snaps to Devin Singletary's 43%. The week before, Zach Moss fumbled in the first quarter, and he basically sat the whole game. So you're looking at Singletary getting most of the carries. But then in week 12, Zach Moss was a 60-40 split as well. So minus week 13, where he fucked up in the first quarter, Zach Moss has been the guy. So I think the pricing reflects that. Devin Singletary is kind of one of these guys that I just don't want to touch at all. I know that the apparently Denver's defense is ranked 31 versus 31st versus this position. I just don't think if this is a blowout, I think there's opportunity for Zach Moss here to get some carries. I just don't like Devin Singletary, even at the ownership. Devin Singletary is projected to be, around 25% total owned here or less. I know that that's appealing. I just don't think he has a path to getting more than 10 fantasy points, in my opinion. So how are you handling this, or are you even handling this at all?
Yeah, this is another one of those games where I'm trying to avoid the running backs on the Buffalo Bills. If I do need to start playing one of them, I do like Devin Singletary at 5K. He's projected for damn near the same amount as Zach Moss. And,
yeah.
He looked good, man. He looks like he looks like a powerful runner. He looks like he's got a little bit more speed. I feel like he's a better version of David Montgomery. That's not saying too much, but
Montgomery's been tearing it up lately. I know that's not going to has nothing to do with each other, but I mean, there's an opportunity for Singletary to maybe kind of figure out what the fuck's going on. They're going to need this guy for the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree, man. And again, he's young, right? This whole offense is pretty young, excluding guys like fucking Cole Beasley, who's probably what 44, and then Stephon Diggs. I mean, he's only like 27, but still, I think Devin Singletary is an interesting option at 5K. But again, I don't think you need to play either of these in a lineup together.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
My exposure is still probably going to be pretty close to the field. I'll stay probably 30% max if I go Singletary. Excuse me. Zach Moss, I don't mind taking a couple stabs at, but I just don't. I don't know, man. It's more like a gut feeling. Like I just don't. I don't like Zach Moss. He's not my guy yet. I think he is. He's a little bit too inconsistent for me. And again, you just have so much opportunity cost paying for guys who are going to be running the ball in an offense that can fucking chuck it up the field whenever they want to. And like Josh Allen's is a mini Mahomes. He really is. He has the ability to scramble. He has the ability to throw as far as he wants down the field, just completely off his back foot with no form at all. Right? You literally have two people that are Mike Vick in Madden 2001. You sprint backwards and then just fucking press X. Right? Like that's literally what these guys do. They do it with fairly decent accuracy. So again, I just don't know how much exposure I want any of the Bills' backfield simply because it limits my opportunities to get in pass catchers at the wide receiver position.
And the opportunities in the red zone, more specifically, Josh Allen is going to be involved most likely in all the scoring in the red zone, whether it's him running it in himself or him passing to anybody. Look, can he pass it to Zach Moss for a touchdown? Absolutely, but I would rather just lock in, Josh Allen as the guy who's going to get those points, and there's going to be opportunity taken away from Singletary and Moss in the red zone for sure. I'm more comfortable with Josh Allen sneaking the ball in or doing a little naked boot for a touchdown than I am with any of these guys getting a touchdown. They're very touchdown dependent. If they can score two garbage bullshit 1 yard touchdowns, then they'll make it. They'll probably make it there with their salary. I just don't see that happening, and I definitely don't see them getting over 100 yards. Now, mark this on the tape as fucking both of them go over 100 yards and get fucking 15 receptions each. It is what it is. That shit can happen no matter what. But I just don't like the possibilities of them actually making it into optimal, because Singletary is actually projecting almost 2 points more than Zach Moss at $1,800 less. So I would consider Singletary for sure. I just don't like either of them. When you look at Zach Moss, his ceiling this year is around 20 points. And yes, it's a small sample size. We're talking about, 14 games. This isn't like an NBA season. This isn't like a baseball season where you can really figure out what their true ceiling and floor is. But to me, his best outing this year was against New England for 20 points. He had 2 touchdowns. So like I said, they're very touchdown dependent. I'm likely to just avoid both of them. I'd rather move to the wide receiver side of the ball and just get value there, because that's where, considering the injuries, considering what's going on in the Denver defense's secondary, I think they're going to get fucking lit up. And I think Josh Allen's going to throw the ball quite a bit in this game. So I'd rather focus on that. So anything else to add to that before we move on?
Nope, I'm good. Play both guys.
All right.
Play both quarterbacks. That's all we need to do.
avoid both guys, in my opinion. All right.
Yeah, avoid both running backs. My bad.
So Melvin Gordon, 8,400. He's questionable. Please keep an eye on injuries. Don't just go in plugging these dudes in. It's very important to keep an eye on this stuff. Melvin Gordon at 8,400 seems like a decent price. I feel like he's maybe a little overpriced, but he does get a lot of usage. He does get a lot of volume, and especially if Phillip Lindsay is out or if he's limited, it's going to really boost Melvin Gordon and also boost, Royce Freeman. So Phillip Lindsay's at 2,400. That's a really good price for him. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Gordon's been getting some opportunities out of the backfield for receptions as well, and on DraftKings, 1 point PPR, that's pretty important to consider. You get 5 or 6 receptions, that's like scoring a touchdown, just alone. So consider that. But Phillip Lindsay is kind of that guy as well. If he's healthy and he's going to play, I would consider Melvin Gordon and Lindsay. I don't know if I'm going to play them both in the same lineup, because you're talking about a team that's probably going to be playing from down. They're not going to be wasting a lot of clock, so we're not talking about a ton of carries here. But if one of these guys is injured, Royce Freeman at 200 has to be considered. You're talking about $200. You don't need a lot from Royce Freeman. You need a couple receptions, 5, 6, 7, 8 carries for maybe 30, 40 yards. And yes, that might not get you in the optimal lineup with Royce Freeman, but you're probably going to min cash, which we're not. That's on our goal here, but we want to win back 50 to 75% of our money if we can. So Royce Freeman to me is a low risk option at $200 because you can win some of your money back, and also if he goes off, you can solo ship a tournament. So how are you handling the Melvin Gordon, Lindsey, Freeman? Talk about if either of these guys are out, what you're going to do.
Yeah, so assuming everybody's healthy, I think Melvin Gordon's a decent play. He's a little bit priced up given the fact that he's pretty much splitting snaps down the middle with Phillip Lindsay.
Yeah.
He obviously has more upside just because he's a more physical back. He has a little bit more size. Look, I do get scared of these smaller guys playing skill positions just because, especially at running back, there's only so much of a beating that you can take. Phillip Lindsay is a bit small. He is dynamic for sure. Don't get me wrong, but I think Melvin Gordon gets a slight edge because he does have that ability to be physical, and he can he can withstand a little bit more of a pounding, I guess, for lack of better terms. But look, Melvin Gordon, I think he's in play. I think the Bills' defense isn't necessarily great against the run, so you do have the opportunity to pick up some points there. But if Phillip Lindsay's healthy and he's splitting snaps down the middle at 2,400, that's just dumb to me. That feels like a severe misprice.
Yeah.
I understand that Phillip Lindsay isn't the guy that we had last year. He's not putting up crazy fantasy points, but he's not a $2,400 player, right? This is a guy that can go out there and put out 80 yards and 2 touchdowns on his 50% touches that he's getting, or 50% of the snaps that he's getting, right?
Yeah.
He does have the ability to go out there and up those games, so I think he should be close, priced at least closer to 4,500.
Yeah.
Right. He's cheaper than both kickers. That's fucking disrespectful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One of them hasn't. I mean, like you said, there's a goddamn story about him because nobody knows where the fuck he's been. Right. He's all
cheaper.
of a sudden a kicker.
Yeah.
Right. Like. Yeah, I mean, I doubt we're going to, let's throw back to Kurt Warner again. I doubt we're going to run into this where this guy's a fucking grocery bagger and leads his team to the fucking Super Bowl because, at the kicker position. That's not what this is. So $2,400 seems a little bit egregious and disrespectful. I'm going to have a healthy amount of him. And if one of these guys are out, I think Royce Freeman becomes a hell of an interesting play. At $200, you don't need anything, right? He's going to get a couple passes out of the backfield, and literally, if he catches 2 fucking passes and does nothing else the whole game, 2 points for $200 I'll live. I think I can live with that.
You can min cash with that, and that's not our goal, like I said. But at the same time, you don't need a lot from him to get at least some of your money back. And I think that's important to think about.
Well, imagine a 5-1 build with all the fucking Bills, right? And Royce Freeman being your goddamn one-off from the Broncos. You may not... he's for sure not going to score 30 points, but you're not paying $10,000 for him to score 12 or whatever. So, you do have some unique builds, and I think his ownership will be low enough. If one of these guys are out, you might have to pay attention to that because obviously his ownership's going to spike a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're not going to have to get too crazy different to get some leverage with him in there. But I think these running backs, honestly, these running backs are all in play for me. I just don't know if I'm going to get there again because if I'm going to throw in Drew Lock, I'm probably going to want to get one of the pass catchers too. So. We'll see. We'll see how it gets there. This might be a game where we fade the running backs again.
Yeah, I don't think that you want to play Gordon and Lindsey in the same lineup. If you've watched this show before, we're not afraid to play running backs and their backups. In fact, we'll even, with the Ravens, we'll fucking do three running back. Like, we're not afraid to do that. Negatively correlated plays don't matter in Showdown as much, obviously, as they would, on a main slate. In fact, they're probably better for you. So in this case, Gordon and Lindsey, I don't think there's going to be a lot of volume to them both. I think one or the other is going to be the better option. So if you take a stand or if you want to spread out, that's probably the best bet. Melvin Gordon last week got less snaps than Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay had, one less route run last week than Gordon. He had one less target and 2 less rush attempts. So look, last week they had a good game. They were winning. That's a game script where Melvin Gordon would be the guy, and it just didn't work out that way. So just think of it that way, where I think both of these guys are in play, but the fact that Melvin Gordon is $8,400 and Phillip Lindsay is $6,000 cheaper, you just have to consider more Lindsay to me, especially if Lindsay's hovering around 15% ownership. I mean, that's insane. That you got to go with a lot of Lindsay if he's healthy. If there's reports coming out that he's on the snap count or anything like that, then that changes everything, obviously. All right, so let's, we spent enough time on these running backs. I don't think we need to talk about running backs anymore in this game. I think the most important position here is going to be wide receiver. Let's start with the Broncos here. This is going to be an interesting situation for the Broncos wide receivers. You've got, it looks like Judy is back. Judy's healthy here. You've got Tim Patrick at 7,600. You've got Jerry Jeudy at 5,800. KJ Hamler went ham last week with 2 touchdowns, 5,400.
That was terrible.
And Deshaun Hamilton, I don't even, probably not worth mentioning, at 800. I'm probably, he's under 10% owned. So
it's Deshaun.
Oh, Deshaun. Sorry.
Deshaun. Yeah.
Apologize. So Tim Patrick here is the clear number one. Jerry Jeudy has had it. He had his one good game here. Hasn't really done anything since. KJ Hamler is going to be overinflated in popularity, in my opinion, even though we like him. I think having 2, recency bias pops up with 2 touchdowns last week with Drew Lock. Of course, his ownership's going to spike. We're looking at Tim Patrick last week with 84% of the snaps, Jerry Jeudy with 75%, KJ Hamler with 60%, and then Deshaun with 22%. So how are you handling this? I think you're going to have to get one of these guys in every single one of your lineup. You go Drew Lock and one of these guys, or maybe if you in your handful of lineups without Drew Lock, you go one of the running backs or the tight end and one of these wide receivers. How do you handle, like, who's your favorite guy here? Price adjusted here.
I guess it has to be Jerry Jeudy. I have a little bit of a bias towards my Alabama guys, but
you son of a bitch.
I think he does have the opportunity to do something okay here. I really don't expect Tre'Davious White to be covering him. I expect him to be on Tim Patrick. And it depends, it depends on where they're lining up Jerry Jeudy and what kind of offense they're running. So, I think I'm going to actually probably end up watching some game film to see what they've been doing with Jerry Jeudy and how they've been lining them up. But, at 5,800, I think that's reasonable enough that you're not really getting too risky by playing a number 2 guy. You're right, Tim Patrick is emerging as the number 1. If I can afford him, I'm going to get him into a bunch of lineups. I think he's a solid player, and we called it on the last show, right, where we talked about the Broncos. Tim Patrick he's their guy, and he's being priced up accordingly. Look at that output. That's not. He's
pretty good.
He's doing pretty good. Yeah,
and 7,600 is not expensive for a number 1 guy with a lot of green in his box score here.
Right, and look, that 0 is without a quarterback.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, we crossed that one off. These aren't terrible prices. So outputs and performances. Like, I think he definitely has the upside, and he's showing that he wants to be that number 1 receiver for this team. And then we already talked about Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. The appeals worn off for me. the reason why we were talking about him was because of his pricing. He does have he does have clear upside, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if he's going to continue to get that kind of volume. I think they do want to work him in the offense. And if Drew Lock gets going, I do think he's a viable option. But again, he's $200 cheaper than Jerry Jeudy, and he just came off of a 23-point performance, or 22.6. So I think that we're going to get some recency bias here. His ownership's going to be inflated. And Jerry Jeudy just seems like he's going to be a decent pivot off of the guy. I mean, I'm not planning on building any lineups that are going to be maxing out salary anyway, so I should have the flexibility to bump up if I need to.
Yeah.
I will have some KJ Hamler, obviously, because I think you need to have Drew Lock and one of these pass catchers, right?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the optimal stack. I don't think you need two of these receivers. But I think I'm going to be leaning more towards Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick, and then getting in some sprinkles of KJ Hamler. Deontay Spencer, Jaysean Hamilton, really don't have that much interested in. I think you can jam Hamilton into one lineup just because he's at 800. And, he's projected for around 3 points, 2.5 points, depending on what site you're looking at. All right. But, that's not terrible for $800. But again, I don't know if we're going to need to dig that deep on this slate.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting, right? I want to prioritize the passing attacks on both sides and try and fade the running game. I think that's going to be the easiest script to success in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if Hamler comes in higher owned than Jeudy, I think Hamler is more of a fade for me. Just keep an eye on ownership. Tim Patrick, I don't care what his ownership is. I'm going to try to get a lot of him. I mean, look, his ownership right now is under 30%. I think that's insane. And I think at 7,600, I think he's a great price. I know he's priced up a little bit than what he has been in the past, but he deserves to be. He's the number one guy. I know that this offense isn't the sexiest thing ever, but Drew Lock has potential. This is a primetime standalone game here. I think Tim Patrick can come out and, prove that he's the number one guy here. The only question is Jeudy or Hamler. To me, I don't think I'm going to play them in the same lineup together. I'm not setting a rule for that. If it organically happens, then it happens. But to me, I'd rather go Tim Patrick or the tight end that we'll get to here in a minute, and one of two of these guys. I don't think I want to play them in the same lineup, and I'll pick the lower owned one because I think if Jerry Jeudy comes in lower owned than KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy is a great play because KJ Hamler had a outlier performance for the ages. He had 2 receptions for 2 touchdowns. I mean, come on. And he only had 3 targets. So, look, I like KJ Hamler. I think he's a great option at a lower price and a lower ownership. But right now, I think his ownership is going to be way inflated because people just look at last week and see, or his average fantasy points scored on the Draftkings app and see that it's higher than it was because of that big game. And I think they plug him in more than he deserves to be. All right, so let's move over to the Buffalo side of things here. Stephon Diggs at 11.4K. Don't even think about it. We said this before. Just play Stephon Diggs. He is a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL right now. It's debatable if he's actually going to hold up that way over the next few years, but right now the numbers are pointing towards him being one of the top wide receivers in the NFL, and he's on one of the best teams in the NFL. So at 11.4K, he's getting the targets, he's getting the volume. There's no reason to be fancy with this unless he pulls his fucking dick muscle like our boy Derek Carr in the first quarter. I want to get a lot of him. And you have to take a stand on things like this. To me, if I get him in 90% of my lineups, I don't care. That's good. It's risky if he gets hurt or he gets shut down or something like that. But I know he's expensive, but just don't overthink this. Where you have to think about things is Cole Beasley at 9,200. I know he's getting a lot of volume, but Cole Beasley at 9,200s, I just don't like that price for him. I don't think he is a $9,200 player. I know this year he's getting a lot of targets. He's going to be a guy who gets, friggin' 62 fucking targets, 14 receptions, and 56 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, he could be in the optimal lineup. with those numbers. I just don't like the pricing. I'd rather go to Gabriel Davis at 6,200, who is going to be 10 to 15% lower owned, and he's $3,000 cheaper. Isaiah McKenzie is a straight up dart throw. He's not getting the opportunity. He's getting 14 to 15% of the snaps. It's a straight up dart throw. I know he caught a touchdown last week. To me, that's an outlier performance. 1,400 is tempting. I might get 2 lineups with him. What are your thoughts on? Look, Diggs. I think we both agree. Just play Diggs. What are your thoughts on Beasley, Davis, McKenzie here?
Look, man, I'm with you. I think 9,200 is a little bit high for Cole Beasley, but I don't know if the pricing is necessarily associated to the overall expectation from the wide receivers as opposed to more of what they're projecting for Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen is getting a lot of attempts. He's getting a lot of yards, and he's padding his stats, and the concentration for the passing concentration has been pretty tight. So it's going to Diggs, Beasley, and really those two, right? The amount of targets that they're getting is insane. So normally I'm with you, and I really would like to be able to fade Cole Beasley. It's just I did that the other night, and he ended up being the optimal captain. Granted, I think that was like 2 weeks ago, but and he was obviously priced a lot better than that. But I don't know what to do, man. With the amount of volume that he's getting, some of these, it's hard to not take that seriously. I mean, those 10 targets, right? I mean, against Pittsburgh, that's a solid amount of targets. And what did he have? It was only. God damn it, my fucking face is covering up.
What do you need? I got you. I got numbers in front of me.
Yeah. What did he have for receptions last week against Pittsburgh?
He had 5 receptions.
Okay, 5
10
receptions
targets
against 10 targets, right?
Yeah.
You add 3 more in there. I mean, all of a sudden he's at 12 points and probably another 30 yards, right? So that adds another 3 points. He's up to 15. So it's just really hard to get off of him. The problem is I don't really know where the value is here yet. If Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, one of them ends up being out, then fuck yeah, I'm going to damn Josh Allen, Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, and just let it fucking ride from there with Royce Freeman, right?
Yeah.
So it's just going to be tough to build because they're so expensive. But I'm with you. I think you have to kind of take a stand on who you want, Diggs or Beasley. But for me, it's going to be Diggs. If I'm going to be paying that much, I'd rather just pay up a little bit more. Or it's quite a bit more, right? 2.2 thousand.
Yeah.
But Stephon Diggs is, I mean, he's having a hell of a season. I think you're right on, right? I think he's a top 3 wide receiver right now. And he's got a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now. So it definitely doesn't help your output when you're meshing that well with your quarterback. So you got 2 extreme talents who are working really well together. I think it's just it's a great opportunity. So again, I don't need to get too crazy here because it's not like we're fucking providing you with anything new on this particular analysis. All of these are great plays. It's just going to be really tough given the salary. If I have to fade someone, I'm going to lean towards Cole Beasley. And yeah, Gabriel Davis. I mean, he has 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games, and 4 touchdowns in his last 5. He's looking at usually about 4 targets a game. Last week, I think he had 8 or 9. So he's starting to get a little bit more volume. The problem is that the receptions aren't necessarily translating. But he's getting points. I mean,
touchdowns.
Look, he's 15, 12. He's getting the points that we need to be a productive player. And at 6,200, I think he's viable. In fact, he might even be an interesting captain play tomorrow night. You don't need to get too crazy with it. You can run 3 or 4 lineups with him. And if he has 80 yards and a touchdown on 6 receptions, you might just fucking crush.
Ellie, talk about a little bit more about these wide receivers if you have some numbers on that. I got to check my power real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah. So just so you guys are all aware, he's just out of dedication to the Republic of California. He's honoring the power grid by experiencing blackouts in his house by himself or with his wife. So they really don't have rolling blackouts during the winter. So he thought he would show some respect there. But yeah, let's keep diving into these receivers. Stephon Diggs is obviously my top play here. Cole Beasley's he's up there as well. Gabriel Davis, I think he's a solid play. I mean, the owner or the targets are going to be tightly concentrated between this group. Isaiah McKenzie is still a little bit pricey for me. I don't mind him at 1,400, but I just don't know if he's going to be necessary. This isn't going to be an opportunity to run gadget plays. They're not going to need to do anything weird. They should beat this team pretty handedly, and they don't need to get crazy, which kind of limits what he's going to be doing on the field. So we'll see. I don't mind having a lineup or two with him. I think he's better, more viable, and much deeper GPPs. If you have 150 max that you're running or a 50,000 entry tournament, that's something worth jamming in there, right? Marcus Mariota won the showdown the other night.
Crazy.
He was literally that was the only lineup.
Can't believe that.
But you had one lineup with him at captain, and you had the lineup in second place with him in flex. Those were the only two lineups in the entire fucking contest that had him in the 500K at first. So I don't think Isaiah McKenzie's awful. I just don't think he's going to be needed in this particular game.
Yeah, me neither.
They really shouldn't be. There's no reason that they need to get too crazy with this. I mean, you can just fucking throw it to Stephon Diggs 15 times and Cole Beasley 36, and you'll probably win by 20. So I just don't expect those gadget plays to come in.
Yeah.
And then Jake Kumaro,
fucking Green Bay. Jesus.
Yeah, I still thought he was on Green Bay.
I know.
And I'm still shocked every time I see his name on here.
All right, so
Andre Roberts. I do want to say one thing about Andre Roberts. If you want to get real crazy here, I don't mind stacking Andre Roberts with the Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
I do feel like Andre Roberts has the opportunity to take one back. He's been looking pretty good recently in his return. In some of his returns, and I don't know. It's just a fucking that's absolutely a dart and a stab, and I'm not going to waste any more of your time on that. So on to whatever you were going to say.
Ellie, pull your mic away from your sweater there. Yeah, there you go. All right, so look, the last thing I'll say about this is I know everyone's heavy on Cole Beasley, and look, there's an opportunity for him to absolutely crush in this game. Fade at your own risk. But for me, I'm totally comfortable fading him simply because, look, Gabriel Davis is getting just as much, if not more, snaps throughout the whole season over Cole Beasley. Last week, they had the same exact amount of snaps. The week before, Gabriel Davis had 97% of the snaps. Cole Beasley had 71%. He's getting more routes run. Gabriel Davis is 43 to 40, 42 to 32. Consistently more. His air yards way more overall this season. Now, when it comes to target share, that's a whole different thing. You're talking about, last week Cole Beasley had 2 more targets than Davis. The week before he had 7 more targets. So that's where things are different. And yes, that's where Cole Beasley has the advantage. But we're looking at opportunity here on Showdown. At that price, Gabriel Davis is getting much more opportunity, and considering the fact that this Denver defense's cornerback situation is so strange, we just don't know how they're going to prioritize guarding. They're going to obviously guard Diggs, and most likely they're going to go after Cole Beasley here. They're going to run zone or whatever it is they're going to do to try to stop Beasley on these little slant patterns that he's going to run to stop his receptions. But Gabriel Davis could be the guy who slips through the cracks. Just keep that in mind. And at that ownership, I think he could be the guy that breaks through in this game. All right, let's move on to tight end here. For Buffalo, look, we don't need to talk much about this. Dawson Knox. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good name. Dawson Knox at 4,400. Nothing really to write home about. He did score 2 touchdowns in week 12 and 13. It's a dart throw. And at 4,400, I know he's the main guy here. I just want to avoid this guy altogether. I might have 1 or 2 lineups with him total. Lee Smith is the backup here. I don't really want to touch him at all. But if Lee Smith is out, I think Reggie Gilliam is that guy. But also remember, Tyler Croft, I don't think he's going to be reactivated. He's on the COVID list for the past few weeks. If he is activated, he's an interesting play because then he becomes that second play, especially if Lee Smith is out. So keep an eye on that. I'm not even going to get too deep into this. I don't think these guys project well at all. They're all super low owned. They're all dart throws, in my opinion. Let's move over. Do you have anything to add to that?
Dawson Knox is interesting if you need to save some salary, but I wouldn't get too crazy. You only need 2 or 3 with him.
Don't get too crazy. So this is interesting here. So Noah Fant is going to play this week, so he's back. He's at 5,600. I like Noah Fant a lot, and him and Drew Lock have gotten along pretty well. They have some good chemistry. You got Nick Vannett at 2,800, and you got Troy Fumagalli. I hope that's how you say his fucking name. The dude went ham last week. Had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 53 yards. Not bad. Obviously, that's he benefited from Noah Fant being out. I think you have to consider Noah Fant here. He doesn't have a lot of touchdowns, but if you look at his targets and yards, pretty good. Pretty decent. His receptions aren't great, but you're looking at a guy who probably can get you, 4 receptions for 50 yards and potentially a red zone touchdown here. So Noah Fant, especially considering he's around 20% owned, he's probably like 0% owned in the captain. I think he's a great captain option because when he goes off, he can go off. And his floor is relatively high considering this slate. I think Noah Fant's a great play. Nick Vannett maybe at 2,800. Troy Fumagalli at 1,600. I'm not a huge fan considering Fant's coming back. How do you handle this?
I love Noah Fant. I have him in a couple songs. He's kind of let me down a little bit this year, but last year he crushed. He's a very athletic tight end. He's very much a pass catching tight end, and he's young. He still has a lot of room to grow and improve. And again, I just think that there's not enough talent on the Buffalo side of the ball. Somebody is going to have those opportunities to do something here. And, if we want to talk about regression towards the mean, he has an opportunity. He should be at probably 3 or 4 touchdowns by now, right? How many does he have this year? 9?
I think 2.
2?
If you're talking about Fant?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got 2 touchdowns, but he's been injured for a few seasons or a few games.
Close to seasons almost.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, he should be closer to. He should be a guy who's getting 5 or 6 touchdowns at this point in the season. He is that kind of talent of a tight end, and at 5,600, I'm with you, man. I think he is a great option at the captain play. He's not going to be owned there. So again, you don't have to get crazy. You can build 2 or 3 lineups and jam in all the expensive guys that you want, essentially.
Yeah.
And still be fairly different. As far as Vannett and Troy Fumagalli, I don't give a shit about either of them. When I clicked on Troy Fumagalli, when I saw his picture, dude, I'm pretty sure that's Justin Herbert. I'm like, what the fuck?
What, really?
No, obviously it's not. I mean, he's got a Broncos shirt on, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, looks like him. I didn't know that.
Yeah, bro. I did not think he was gonna look like Justin Herbert. Let's just say that. All right. Well, look. All I gotta say is Noah Fant. I'll have a shitload of him. The only reason why I won't have more exposure is because Melvin Gordon's out and Lindsay is active. If that's the case, then I'm gonna jam the shit out of Philip Lindsay in all my lineups. But if those guys are both active, then I'll probably be a lot more heavy on Noah Fant than pretty much anybody else. I mean, him and Jerry Jeudy are pretty similar price, so those guys are going to be nice to build with, I think.
Yeah, I think Noah Fant is a guy, a priority to me. Getting Locke, Fant, and Patrick, Locke, Fant, and Jerry Jeudy, that's going to make you very unique doing a 3-3 in this game. I think the game can be relatively close. As long as this game stays within 10 points, I think you're not going to have too much garbage time here. And I think that can really help you. I think a 3-3 is actually going to be very, very unique in this game. You don't have to go 4-2 Denver to be unique, which is nice. So we got kickers and defense here. Tyler Bass, kick his ass Seabass at 4,200. Brandon McManus is not playing. That'll be replaced by whatever that guy's fucking name is at 3,600. Kick his ass Seabass, not bad. I think he has a higher ceiling than most kickers, and he's got a decent floor here. So we're not going to go too much into kickers. I just personally, like I always say, I don't like kickers in Showdown or in fantasy sports in general because it's very, very difficult to project what their actual opportunity is going to be. He might not even get a chance to kick a field goal in this game. It's possible. Maybe he just kicks like four extra points, and he's got 4 points at 4,200. That's not going to do anything for you. So I'm more likely to be way under the field on him. He's projected around 20% ownership. If I get him in one lineup, I'll be fine. I'd rather go with the other guy at 3,600 because he's such an unknown. I'm assuming he's going to be under 10% owned, considering he's like today, he's not on any optimizers yet. So that's just something to consider. When it comes to defense, we've got the Bills at 4,600. I think you have to consider the Bills here. That's a decent price for them. And the Broncos at 3K. I think you have to consider a little bit of both of these teams. Josh Allen is fucking, he can be Joe Montana or he could be fucking Mark Sanchez. He's leaning towards Joe Montana this year. He's a pretty solid, good quarterback this year. He's not having a lot of mistakes, but we've seen how erratic he can be. He can fucking pitching balls backwards and shit in playoff games. Like, that can happen. He can throw some interceptions. There can be some turnovers here. So how do you handle kickers and defense in this situation? As quick as you can. We're running over an hour here, so I don't think anybody really needs to hear too much about our kickers and defense analysis.
Yeah, I like Tyler Bass. The rest I really don't give a shit about, to be completely honest. I think this game is going to be high enough in the points that you're not going to have to worry about getting defense in your flex.
And especially considering the kickers this year, just how inconsistent they've been. That's a theme.
Bro, Philip Lindsay is $2,400. Like,
that's all you need to know.
Like, I'd rather just play him.
I totally agree. That's all you need to know here. So let's move on to our fade of the night.
What's your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!
Ellie, tell me about your fade here, bro.
Yeah, man. He's just priced up a little bit too high. I don't know how I'm going to be able to get him in. And Stephon Diggs. I'm going to prioritize Josh Allen. I'm going to prioritize Drew Lock and Stephon Diggs. And then I'm going to have to fucking figure it out from there. I just don't know that there's value enough yet to get Cole Beasley into those lineups as well. Yeah. I do think he does make for an interesting captain play, to be honest with you, if you want. But again, his pricing is going to make it difficult to build with the guys that I want to jam in. So that's really all I got to say on it.
It's a pricing thing. You have to make a decision on your own here. We're not telling you to blindly fade Cole Beasley. Obviously, Cole Beasley has a very high probability to be in the optimal lineup. But you've got to use some leverage here. You've got to use the pricing versus his ownership. And I think and look, we're talking about lineup construction as opposed to individual players. Cole Beasley paired, how are you going to make a unique lineup that's not doesn't have like one or two complete punts if you have Josh Allen, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs in the same lineup? That's a lot of fucking salary. So where do you go? You have to fade Drew Lock. You have to go with, one cheap player from Denver and a Isaiah McKenzie. It gets really, really difficult to have Cole Beasley with your Stephon Diggs. I'd rather have Stephon Diggs in every lineup over Cole Beasley. So just decide what you want to do. It's up to you. We're not building lineups for you. We're trying to talk about our strategy when it comes to why we're fading, not just blindly predicting that he's going to have a bad game. He could have a good game, but there's a path where he scores 10 fantasy points at 9,400 and he's not in the optimal. For me, I'm going with Devin Singletary. I just don't think there's enough volume there. I don't think this is some sort of hot take. Typically I like to fade a guy that's a little higher owned just to get more leverage that I think can have maybe a bad game. But Singletary, I think he'll be around 20% owned. And if he dips more below that, then my fade of the night is going to change. I might actually get some more Singletary. But as of right now, I just don't like him unless he's way lower owned than we expect. So let's move over to our captain choice here. This is our Crown Their Ass segment, our favorite DraftKings captain here, Denny Green.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, tell me about yours. Not a whole lot of explaining to do here.
Yeah, look, I'm still struggling about where I'm going to go, what direction I'm going to go with this slate. I honestly think you made the right pick here with Gabriel Davis, and you'll get into that here in a second. But just really the analysis we're doing here kind of helped me lean a little bit more towards him. But, Stephon Diggs he's a solid captain play. And I think, getting a couple lineups with the chalk captain isn't a bad idea necessarily, right?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to go in and jam in 20 lineups with fucking Gabriel Davis and a captain.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, we really need to emphasize to our listeners here, right? Just because we're fading the chalky captain doesn't mean we're fading him in all our lineups. And every once in a while, it kind of is clear that you do need to play some of these guys. And Stephon Diggs is in an opportunity. He is going to be in a position to kind of crush. And I do want a couple lineups that are going to be still slightly contrarian, but have the upside that can happen if Stephon Diggs has one of his upside or a ceiling nights, right? Kind of like your Tyler Lockett call a while back. Granted, it's not quite the same pricing situation that we're looking at it tonight or tomorrow night.
Yeah.
But if that happens, there's not much you can do to really build out a side. To even cash really if you don't have him in the right spot.
Yeah.
And as we learned from the Ravens Browns game, David Njoku sometimes it getting that $1,000 backup isn't always a bad option. If you get 3 receptions for 60, 70 yards, you can end up in the optimal lineup. I mean, he had 6.7 points at 1,000 or 6.5 points at 1,000, and honestly, you the lineup that ended up solo shipping, you'd think wouldn't have been a solo build. So, I think there are ways you can get creative with some of these chalkier captains. And again, I know I didn't get much into Stephon Diggs here, but I wanted to justify my reasoning behind the odd transition into chalk this time.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs is obviously Stephon Diggs.
And look, we're not saying you can't play chalk. We're not saying that because it's about lineups, not players. You have to focus on your lineup construction and figure out where most of these lineups are going to end up and the sort of rosters that are going to be built. If you're going to have Stephon Diggs, you're going to have to find ways to be unique in the flex. And if you could find that edge with injury news, or if there's one player that pops out to you, they can get that random touchdown, then by all means do it. Just don't go playing both quarterbacks and all the highest owned guys in the flex with Stephon Diggs and your captain at being that second highest owned guy, because if you ship first place, you might not actually profit. You could be duped with 100 people. And at that point, is it worth it? To me, no. I don't care about getting first place. I don't care about screenshot life if I'm not winning money. So think about that. So for me, Gabriel Davis, look, he's getting more opportunities than Cole Beasley at this point. And at $3,000 cheaper and 10 to 15% lower ownership, we're talking about, let's see, where is he at? Like 3% in the captain. I don't have to be unique for shit. I can play all the best plays I want, especially at 6,400. I don't really have to fade anybody because no one's playing Gabriel Davis. No one's going to play him for a reason. The probability of him being the highest scoring player on the slate is relatively low. Let's just be honest here. But there's a path that playing him, you don't necessarily need to be the highest scoring player if all the chalk ends up being spread out, all the scoring for the chalk ends up being spread out. Gabriel Davis at the captain allows you to be unique. Just like the Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota wasn't the highest scoring player in that game. He had a good game, but because of the fact that it was such a unique lineup, allowed them to solo ship that. Now, that's an extreme situation. I'm not saying Gabriel Davis is the equivalent of a backup quarterback from a guy who gets his groin injured. That's the point here, is I like Gabriel Davis at this pricing. I like him with the opportunity. And considering the Denver Broncos defense is in a little bit of a disarray right now in their cornerback area, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to slip through the cracks here. We just don't know. So I'm willing to say, look, if he's at 3% or 5%, let's just, even if he's at 10%, I know that he's not going to be at 10%, but if he's at 5% in the captain, and I get 20% of my lineups with him at captain, I'm way above the field. And I'm more likely to go 50%. That's just what I like to do because I want to get as much variation on those lineups as I can because I feel pretty confident on it. But if I'm at 20% and then I spread out to more Stephon Diggs and figure out other ways to be unique there, you still have a ton of leverage on the field. So Ellie, what are your thoughts on both of these lineups or both of these captain options here? Like, how much of Gabriel Davis are you going to get if he's at 3% captain?
I build a little bit weird. For the lower chalk captains, I'm gonna have a pretty decent exposure to Gabriel Davis. I mean, it's gonna be much easier to build lineups with him in there. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see this in a second when we try to build with Stephon Diggs. There's only a handful of lineups you can really do that. Personally, that I feel comfortable even playing, and that means it's probably only going to be 2 or 3 lineups that I play with him in captain.
Yeah.
But Gabriel Davis is going to give you the opportunity to put 15 and 20 pretty unique lineups in, and cover a little bit more broad range of outcomes. So, that's why I build this way. That's why I use guys like Gabriel Davis, and that's why I'm probably going to have a decent amount of exposure to Noah Fant and captain. I'll probably throw a couple Jerry Jeudy in there too. I mean, Tim Patrick at 7,600.
That's a good option.
Captain.
Yeah.
Right. If he has another touchdown 80-yard game, right, you fucked everything up.
Yeah.
So look, Stephon Diggs obviously has the highest. He's a ceiling guy. He has the highest ceiling out of anybody on this slate.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Josh Allen. So if he has that ceiling game, then I want those 1 or 2 lineups.
Yeah.
In there. But again, you only have a certain amount of builds that you can put in that way, and so you're risking a lot of chalk. I'm right there with you. I'll probably have 70 to 80% exposure to somebody under 8,500 at the captain spot.
All right, let's build a lineup, dude. So do you want to build with Stephon Diggs just to see how hard it is to actually get him in?
Yeah, and I want you to put in Josh Allen and Drew Lock too, because that's essentially what we talked about here, right? Those are the guys that we want in pretty much every lineup.
Yeah. Okay. So look at this. So actually, let me move my screenshot here so you guys can actually see what we're dealing with here. But remaining salary is not very impressive. So 3,500. So you have to punt at 3. Now, obviously, we're going to go with the Philip Lindsay type guy here. So, but you're still talking about two guys that are most likely not. They don't have a high probability of doing well. So. Right? I mean, don't we have to go with Philip Lindsay here at this point? Even if Melvin Gordon does play, we're gonna have to go with Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, 100%.
So it leaves us with about 4,000.
We're gonna end up with a specific build, and I'm not gonna lie, this will probably be the only lineup that I run with Stephon Diggs as captain because it's the only one that I'll be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And we'll get there here pretty quickly. I mean. So
what about Noah Fant here?
Go ahead, plug him in.
All right, so that leaves us with 2,500. So look, right now we're at three Denver players. We got to get another Buffalo guy in. So where do we go with Buffalo here? We got to go another wide receiver.
Yeah, you know exactly where I'm going to go with this, right? I mean, there's only one guy that I'm comfortable putting in this position, and I would expect him to be exactly. I'm going to expect him to be under 10% owned.
McKenzie,
the issue for me is I'm not sure that's going to be low enough owned for this kind of build. And look, the problem is if I'm only comfortable with this build at Stephon Diggs at captain, there's a good chance this is going to be duplicated, 20 to 30 times.
Yes.
So that's something to keep in mind, right? And again, when we do this show, when we're calling out our captains, you got to get creative. If all of a sudden Melvin Gordon or Philip Lindsay is out and Royce Freeman or whoever Royce to 5'9" is fucking playing running back, then we have a little bit more unique build. Again, that becomes another free square full of chalk.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you have to find a way to get different.
Exactly.
And I just don't know. I'm comfortable fading Drew Lock.
Well,
And that's how you're gonna have to get different in this build. But
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to try that real quick?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So let's get rid of these 3 players here. Let's get rid of Locke, and let's look at 2 medium to high price players from Denver here.
Tim Patrick.
Yeah, so let's go with Patrick.
And honestly, I put Noah Fant back.
Yeah,
in,
I
man.
put Noah Fan as well. So look, I feel pretty comfortable here saying that if we fade Drew Lock to have these guys in the lineup, I feel pretty good with a 4-2. If we're gonna go 4-2 here with Diggs and the captain, or 3-3, this is a pretty nice start. Drew Lock, it's gonna get scary, but we've seen plenty of times in Showdown where sometimes you just don't need both quarterbacks depending on the game script. All right, so we got 36.50 remaining. Where do we go here? Are we gonna have to get a kicker here or something? Like what are we gonna do here?
Well, so we got Noah Fant, Tim Patrick.
Can we go Gabriel Davis? That leaves us 1100. Is there anybody worth playing at 1100? Probably not. I mean, if Royce to 5'9" is a better play with one of these guys injured, we could do that. So I don't think we can get to Gabriel Davis here. I think you got to go. Go ahead.
I think you still got to play Philip Lindsay.
Yeah, I think so.
See that's the problem is you're going to need to play Philip Lindsay
3-3.
these as Stefan's captain.
Yeah,
and then from here, honestly, I think Tyler Bass is an awful play. I mean, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, Tyler Bass. You have pretty much all the scoring that you can get from Buffalo. Obviously, that's a shitty statement with Cole Beasley, but
yeah, you could do Dawson Knox, but I would rather not. I'd rather go with kick his ass Seabass here at 4,200.
Dude, Tyler Bass could kick a 62-yarder tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Again, this is in fucking Mount High Stadium, right?
Look, this is what you're dealing with. This is why when we try to avoid Stephon Diggs type players. Obviously, he's one of the best players on the slate, but these are the kind of lineups you end up with. Am I more comfortable going with a lower priced Gabriel Davis type at 6,200? Yeah,
let's build with him, man. Let's do it. Let's show him.
So this is just to get an idea of what we're working with here when you go with Diggs lineups. And Diggs lineups if Diggs can absolutely be the main guy, but you got to figure out ways to get really, really creative here. So let's look at Gabriel Davis at captain, and let's just see what we can do here. So automatically Josh Allen, Drew Lock. I think we want to go Stephon Diggs in the flex. That's obvious. And then, we can go. So we have 6,900 remaining. So still, it's not easy to build with all these guys. But you have Allen, Lock, and Diggs in your flex, which is pretty good. I mean, do we have to go Lindsey again? I mean, Lindsey is kind of the key to the slate here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I think Philip Lindsay is fine, and I mean, shit. You can see you're gonna leave some salary on the table, but you can still throw in Noah Fant there.
No, you. Oh yeah. No, you can't. We got 4,500 remaining. It's just a weird.
You're right.
It's a weird gap. If you look at the wide receivers, you got KJ Hamler and at 5,400, and then $4,000 less at Isaiah McKenzie at 1.4K. There's just not a lot of options there. So
yeah,
it's
Dawson Knox, I guess. What the fuck?
Yeah, you can go Dawson Knox. Okay, look. What if we killed Locke here? I mean...
So that's what I had. That's why I got confused. I had Drew Lock, and instead of Drew Lock, I had Tim Patrick.
And I kind of like that. It's tough. Getting both quarterbacks is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult here. Here, let me just hit optimize and see what this does. So Lindsey and Fant. So this is a 3-3 is what it wants to do. And I don't hate this lineup either. This is not bad. You know,
It looks like, dude. I mean, it looks like you just have to build with Philip Lindsay.
Philip Lindsay's
I mean,
the key.
the only other thing. Let's do this real quick, if you don't mind. Do you want to build one with Noah Fant at cap?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see if that works out better. If that extra couple bucks savings can actually help us here. So Noah Fant is actually about $900 cheaper in the captain. So that could change a lot for us. So let's go both quarterbacks, Stephon Diggs. I think that's a solid core. That leaves us with 3,900. I think you got to go with Philip Lindsay again. I'm not saying play Philip Lindsay 100% of your lineups, but you know, he could be the key in my opinion. So 5,400 remaining. Where do we go here? 5,400. Hamler.
So here you can max up the salary. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, normally I wouldn't max out salary here, but
Noah Fant 3% or less in the captain, it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about that kind of shit.
Yeah, I honestly, well, shit. It looks like, can we update our fucking slides? Like, I think Noah Fant might be my captain.
Yeah.
Look, I get that it's risky as hell, but I'd rather have to worry about Noah Fant and then, you know, and not miss out on Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Drew Lock.
It's just it's tough because this is a 4-2 now. This is a 4-2 Denver. So this is super unique, and the probability of this hitting the nuts is very low, but like you're not going to be duplicated at all. So
yeah,
and
it's the fucking NFL, man. We keep seeing this shit, dude.
Yeah,
like just don't fucking just because the Vegas line says one thing. I mean, if the goddamn Bills are up by 40 points, then of course Drew Lock's going to go out there and throw for 450 yards.
Yeah.
So you know who knows what's going to happen.
So check this out. You could also do this. So you can go Josh Allen, Diggs, and Singletary here if you're more comfortable with a 3-3. And these are just variations. These are just variations that you can run with. You know, so just by hand building with Fant, we are already seeing that, wow, Fant actually is very, like, we can get some good lineups with him, and he's super low owned. This is kind of where you can hone in and find your advantage here. We just did this live, and we already kind of have a better idea tomorrow when we're really building that Noah Fant. I might actually get a lot more of Noah Fant than I would have if we didn't do this exercise. All right, so anything to add to this, man?
No, thank you for fucking bearing with us. I'm not going to go on a rant. Have a good night, all, and I'll hit it back to Tyson.
So, thanks for joining us, guys. We're gonna have we did about an hour 30 here. If you've gotten through this video, most likely you're not gonna want to watch our quick slant, which is gonna be 15 minutes or less. But if you do, you know, we'll link it. We'll link it in the end here. We're also gonna be having our the Green Bay. Who the fuck is playing? It's Green Bay and fucking. Hang on a second. I gotta look this up. Why am I blanking on this? Carolina. Oh, Carolina. Wow.
Carolina.
Interesting. Okay. So Green Bay, Carolina, we're going to have that. We're going to premiere that tomorrow for you guys, like a few hours before lock. So check that out. Thank you guys so much. Like, subscribe, hit notification bell. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you soon. Thank you guys. See you later.